Really excited to be closing out this series, Becoming Iconic. I've loved this series, and I think of all the weeks, this week is my favorite. I'm really excited about this, but I got to do something that's going to be a little obvious right now. I tend to be a little OCD sometimes. Anybody else with me that you just, things have to be a certain way in your office, like my desk has to be just so, or, okay, I'm that way, and I get like little twitches when that's not the case. They totally jacked up my chair. So I'm going to have to move some stuff around. I apologize. They were setting that out, and I was like, oh, man, that's really going to mess with me. If I sit down, I'm going to be looking over the wrong shoulder, and I'm a little neurotic like that. So please forgive me. We are really excited to be jumping into this. When we film these services, we'll just totally cut that out. So we're going to act like it's just totally normal and everything's okay. So don't mind me, but we're going to go ahead and jump right in. And here's the deal. This series, we've been talking about becoming iconic and what it means to follow Jesus. The idea that Icon, the name of our church, means that we are all image bearers, that we bear Christ's image, that we're created in God's image, but we're also to represent him to our community. And one of the ways that we do that is we learn to become more like Jesus, and that's our mission, to help people become more like Jesus. That's what we're trying to do. So week one, we talked about connection. One of the ways that we do that is we connect. We connect with God and we connect with others. Those are the two things that are really important for us to connect with. And then week two, Kelly did an incredible job, and she came up and talked about growing. That when we're pursuing Jesus, there's growth in our life and we're becoming more like him. And she talked about the three-legged stool with prayer and the word and, Christian fellowship, getting around other people that love Jesus. And last week, Steve did an incredible job talking about the next component, give, that we should live a generous life, and talked about being generous with our story and being generous with grace with other people. And it was this great time that we were able to do that. But this week, I'm really excited to be talking about something else. We're going to be talking about the idea of go. This is the final component, and we're going to talk about go. Now, don't like stand up and leave. It's not like go like, all right, get on out. Like not that kind of go. But the idea of living on mission and going out into the world and doing what Jesus has asked us to do. And to do this, I want to talk about something that is just a natural transition from talking about living on mission and going to cupcakes. So I'd like to talk about cupcakes today. Now, here's the deal. I love cupcake. Doesn't that look good? Like that? If I played this at the end of the message, you guys would just tone out because you'd be so hungry that you're like, okay, Dan, come on, wrap it up. So let's imagine all together, let's imagine that you are going to start a cupcake business, okay? So you're going to start a cupcake business, you're a small business owner, and you have the recipe for the most delicious, amazing cupcakes in the world. Like you have this is like cupcakes on crack, okay? Like you've got the best product in the world, but you're a small business owner and you're starting from scratch. So here's the deal. You don't have some massive marketing budget to work with. You're just starting off. So I want us all to kind of put ourselves in that place. Now, what would you do? What would you do? You've got this great product, but you don't have a ton of marketing. You know what you would do? At least if you're me, man, I would sign up. One of my sons plays soccer. He loves soccer, and they always have snack time after the games. Dude, I would be signing up so fast for every snack time, every birthday party. I got the cupcakes. I got that. I'll go ahead and do that. That's cool. Or whatever, I would bring them everywhere. I'd bring them to work and set them out like on a desk for people in the break room. I would, everything I think about would be framed around the idea of these cupcakes. It's how can I meet more people? How can I just oh, that's awesome. You had, birthday just the other day. That's cool. I should have brought you a cupcake. You would have found ways to work in everywhere you could, even at times it doesn't make sense, like watching football and you're like, oh, it was a great touchdown. Bet he wish he had a cupcake. Speaking of cupcakes, I make cupcakes. You would just do everything. Your life would be framed around the idea of cupcakes, right? And some of you guys that are small business owners, you do this. You hear things, you see things, and you instantly think about your business and how that ties in, and your whole life would be framed around cupcakes. Now, let's take this a step further. Let's get a little bit more real. Now, instead of imagining that we're all small business owners starting a cupcake shop, I want you to all imagine that we're all going to be missionaries to Papua New Guinea. It's a picture of a missionary actually in Papua New Guinea. And I want us to put ourselves there. Now, you're getting ready to leave. You're getting ready to travel halfway around the world. You probably don't even know where Papua New Guinea is. You're like, I probably need to grab a map and look, right? And I want us to think we're going to Papua New Guinea. Now, when we get there, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Well, first, we probably need to learn the language, right? We got to be able to talk to people. So we're going to immerse ourselves in the culture. We're going to begin to learn the language. We're going to study the people and understand what things they love and what things are important to them. And we're going to begin to just translate that and go, okay, what does that mean to me? How can I love these things? And how can I love these people? Now, you got to have a job, right? You need some support. So let's say there's one job and you can make bank. You can make a lot of money, but you're not going to be around anyone. It's kind of this solo job that you're going to be doing. Or you can work a job with a bunch of people, but you make a little less money. If you're a missionary, what do you choose? You choose to be around the people, right? Because that's why you're there. You're not there to just make a bunch of money. You're there to be around people. That's your mission. That drives everything you do. Now, you have a choice of where to live, right? We're all going there. Now, on one part of the island, there's this commune for Westerners, and we can all live together, and it can be kind of our little group. We can either live there and be really comfortable, or we can live in villages like this and live in huts and live amongst the people. And it's going to be harder, and it's not going to be as relaxing. What do you choose? To be with the people, right? Like, because that your whole life is framed around the mission. Like everything you do, that's what you're thinking about. You're thinking about how can I leverage everything I have, everything I do for the mission, for these people, because they are what matters. Not being comfortable, not making a lot of money, is just leveraging that. Your whole life is framed around the mission, right? Now, here's the deal. You might be sitting here right now. You might be thinking, okay, cupcakes and missionaries. Like what on earth does that have to do with going? What do cupcakes and missionaries have in common? You ready? Anyone? Yeah, exactly. Jesus. Perfect. I know you were all exactly thinking that. Like cupcakes, missionaries. Oh, Jesus, right? Like just word of wisdom. If you're ever in church, I learned this in kids' church. I grew up in church from like time I was a little kid. I slept under pews like during the services. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Like drawing the offering envelopes, right? That was me. And I learned something in my time at being in church. When the pastor asks a question, you can never go wrong with Jesus. Just like when in doubt, you're sleeping, Sunday school teacher asks you questions, Jesus? Like that, you can go to that. And they're like, oh, that good, yeah, kind of, but really we're looking for, I don't know, like Sodom and Gomorrah. You know, whatever, like you just default to Jesus and usually you're going to be all right? So cupcakes and missionaries, what that has in common is Jesus. Because see, Jesus had a pretty important mission. He had a pretty important goal, and he said it real clearly. I want to put it up here. In the book of Luke, he said, for the Son of Man, he's talking about himself, Jesus, came to seek and to liberate the lost. This was Jesus' mission. This is why he came. This is why he did everything he did. See, this idea of being lost, this was kind of an analogy that Jesus used. Basically saying that life with God is so great. Life in relationship, in communion with God is so amazing that if you aren't in relationship with him, it's almost as if you're lost. Like you don't even know how great this is. So Jesus came to seek and to liberate the lost. That was his mission. And he lived for 30 years, and then he focused on ministry really hard for 33 years, for 3 years. And for those 3 years, he got a group of men and women around him, and he began to invest into them. Many of us have heard of the 12 disciples, and that was a group of people that Jesus really invested into. And here's the deal. So Jesus spends 3 years doing ministry alongside them, living with them. And I'm sure there were times that he got frustrated. You can read, there's actually funny, he called one of them Satan, right? Like that'd be a bad day. Jesus says, get behind me, Satan. You'd feel a little bad about yourself. But Jesus, like, he sacrifices of himself. And he lives with these 12 guys to teach them a way to live. And then he dies. And he raises from the dead, and he comes back, and he gathers them together. And these are his last words. I'm about ready to read for you his last words to them. He says, guys, come here. I want to tell you something. Now imagine if you're Jesus, right? The last few things you're going to say are pretty important. So let's see how important, just his last words with these guys. He says this, then Jesus came to them and said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Now, Jesus is like making an extra point. Because remember, he's invested his life into these guys. They've seen him die and, well, raise from the dead. And if that wasn't enough of like evidence of like who Jesus is, he says, hey, by the way, yes, I'm back from the dead. And also, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. So in light of that, so Jesus is really setting this up. So what does Jesus say? What is the mission he gives his people? So you must go. Go and make disciples of all nations. Baptize them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. See, Jesus wasn't giving them a suggestion. He wasn't saying like, guys, great job this past 3 years. You guys, killer, did a really good job. Like Jerusalem, like that miracle thing, dude, spot on. Like that was good. Feeding the people, yeah, we did well, Peter, remember the walking on water bit? Come on, buddy, that was great. Okay, good job, guys, get out of here. No, he wasn't giving them a suggestion. You must go. This is a command. He's saying, here's what you have to do. Go and make disciples. What's a disciple? It's a follower of Jesus. It's what they are. They're the 12 disciples. He says, go make more of you. Now the question is, how? Like, how do you make a disciple? How do you go about that? Great question. Answer, Jesus. No, he gives the answer. The next part, go ahead and put it up. Teach them to obey everything I've commanded you, including this command. And you can be sure that I'm always with you to the very end. Jesus is saying, listen, how you do this is you teach them everything I commanded you. What I've taught you, teach other people. What I've modeled in front of you, model in front of them. Hey, how I've lived among you, live among them. How I've befriended you. When some of you even hurt me, befriend them even when they hurt you. And then this command I'm giving you, you give them that command. Teach them. And then he encouraged them because, man, if I'm a disciple of Jesus, I'm thinking, okay, the Son of God just did that. Now he's telling me to go. Like, there's no way. Like, I'm not qualified. I don't know enough stuff. I'm not classically trained. I don't know enough Bible. Like, you'd start feeling really overwhelmed. And he says, surely I'll be with you to the very end. Remember, I've got all authority in heaven and earth, and I'm going to be with you. And I'm giving you this command. So what does that mean for you and me? You see, the awesome thing about that is Jesus gave that command to a small group of men and women. And then those people carried that command out and actually did it. And then those people that they taught everything they knew, including to make disciples, they kept doing that. And they kept doing that, and generation after generation, and decade, and century, and millennia. And here we are. And we are a part of that. I mean, isn't that crazy? Like 2,000 years ago, one guy started this, and here we are. We could like trace it back, and I heard about it because my parents were invested into because of these people and these people. You go all the way back to the early disciples that we're here in one way or another because someone took that command seriously. So if you're in this room right now and you're a follower of Jesus, you would consider yourself a Christian, I've got some good news. Your mission is to seek and to liberate the lost. You might sit there and you might think, like you're the pastor, like that's your job. Like this is where I come on Sundays and get encouraged and listen to some cool music. And no, this is my mission only because I'm a Christian too. Me being a pastor has nothing to do with this outside of I'm just a Christian as well. Alongside you, this is our mission. And this is why this series, Becoming Iconic, is so important because we all have a mission. And you might be thinking like, man, I don't know stuff. Like I haven't been to Bible college. I haven't been to seminary. And I don't know what justification or eschatology or ecclesiology or exegesis. Like I don't know any of those weird words that smart Jesus people say. Like I don't know that stuff. And you know what? The disciples didn't either. They were fishermen. They were common folk. They were people just like me. And Jesus believed in them. And to us, we all have this mission. This is what we're supposed to do. So what now? I mean, what do you do kind of in light of that, in light of knowing that that's our mission? I mean, I want us to have something practical that we can walk away with, just like Benji said. Sometimes we want to hear big concepts and maybe get confused enough so that we don't have to do anything when we walk out of those doors. But I want to break it down and be really, really practical today. And it starts with this. Again, a reminder, if you're a follower of Jesus, you're a missionary. If you're a follower of Jesus, you're a missionary. That's your job. Now, you might get a little nervous at that. I don't know about you, but again, those of us who grew up in church, if you ever went to like church camp, sometime this speaker would come up and he was a missionary and he'd talk about being on the mission field and almost dying and all this stuff. He'd be like, who wants to be a missionary? And you'd be like, Jesus, please, I'm supposed to be a missionary. Jesus, please don't tell me I'm supposed to be. And you're like, go to the bathroom or something. Like sometimes this is a scary concept, right? Like I'm a missionary, like I don't want to go some crazy place. Like I really like soft beds and air conditioning, right? Like I don't know what it is, but sometimes the idea of a missionary, those are those people that go to crazy places. Listen, that's important, and I believe that God may be calling some of you to do that. But what I'm talking about isn't that. It's being a missionary right where you're at right now. If you're a follower of Jesus, you're a missionary. Your job is to become iconic, to leverage that. Your life should be shaped by that mission. When you think about, man, how do I interact? Where do I work? How are you leveraging that work for the mission? Well, my kids, the school that they're at, and how do you leverage that for the mission? And what I'd like to do is I'd like to get really practical. And I'd like to give you some ways that you can kind of, again, become iconic. So the question is, how do we go? How do you do this kind of go thing? Like if we're all supposed to go into all the world and make disciples, how do you go? Number one, be a regular. This is so simple. This is stuff that like you can do tomorrow. Every single one of us can do this. Be a regular. Begin to get to know people at places you already go to. Do you get gas for your car? Yeah? Go to the same gas station. Go to the same gas station every single time, and if you can, maybe try to go around the same time, because what you'll notice is people usually work pretty consistent hours. And instead of paying at the pump and getting that note that says go inside for the receipt, and it makes you just like, just go inside in the first place. Just cut that off. You'll become more patient. You won't have to deal with rage. I struggle with that sometimes. You just go inside and meet the clerk. Take 10 seconds. Ask them how their day's going. That's it. Just be a regular. For me, when I moved here, I want to take you guys back. I want to let you guys in on a little secret. Here's the Icon Church. This is awesome what God has done. This is awesome as you look around and you see everyone here. And we think this is normal. It's real easy to look around and go, oh, this is like normal for a church. And we're less than 4 years into being a church. And as far as having services, less than 3 years. And there's a group of people, about 12 people, that sat in Kelly and I's living room. We first started this. And that example of Papua New Guinea, that was the illustration we used with those 12 people. We said, we're going to a place where you don't know people. And I want us to imagine we're going to Papua New Guinea, and what would you do, and where would you work, and where would you live? And those 12 people, this was the talk that we gave to them. We told them how important it is to choose where they live and where they work so that they can leverage those things. And we talked about being a regular. And we think this is normal. What God has done here, the people whose lives have been affected, things like food stock and all the stuff that we do in the community, the egg drop and the feeding the people at Christmas and the Christmas store and all these things. We think that that's normal because we're a part of it. But did you know after 4 years of all church plants nationwide, by 4 years, only a little over 60% are even still functioning as a church? And of those 60%, and actually in the greater Austin area, it's closer to 20%. And of those 40 or 60 or 20% that are still around, most of them, the vast majority, the average size is about 90 people. See, God's done something significant. And let me be clear, it's been God. But I think God wants to do that for every church. So what has been the secret sauce for us as a church to reach more and more people and have an impact on the community? It's things like be a regular. It's a fact when I got here, I realized that I had to reach out and I had to get to know people because I didn't know anyone. So I picked a coffee shop. The coffee shop that we're partnering with, Tantra Coffee, I said, I'm going to be a regular here. And I got to know the baristas and I got to know the owners and they became my friends. And the other thing that you just saw a second ago, serve your neighbors. Serve your neighbors. It's something that we can all do. Guess what? All of you have neighbors. We all do. I mean, I guess if you live on a farm real far away and, they might be far away neighbors, but we all have neighbors of some kind. We all do. So you know what? Serve them. You heard me talk about before, if you're a regular here, when I moved here, I found out my neighbor, talk about a little hard to serve sometimes, a little hard to love, found out my neighbor was a Satanist. like you do. And I just decided, man, I'm going to find ways that I can serve him and his wife. And Kelly started watching their kid on a regular basis. And I helped Dave move because he owned a tattoo shop. And I became his friend. And when they had marital issues, we talked with Dave and Tiff. And we said, you know what, we're going to leverage where we live to serve our neighbors. But see, that hasn't stopped for me. When we moved this past year, I realized this new neighborhood that we're living in, we're going to have to serve our neighbors. This past week, in fact, yesterday, I was watching the kids. Kelly was gone, and we've got 4 kids, and they can be a little crazy, and it was Saturday, and it was a little crazy, and we've always said, Kelly and I have always said, we want our home to be a home that kids just love to come to. When we were growing up, we all had that one friend that everyone loved to go to their house, and it was just like the house that everyone goes to. We wanted to be that. We wanted it in our neighborhood, in our community, to be a house that kids just love to come to and hang out, and we could just be a blast. And the kids were playing outside, and they got a little hot, and they all asked, can we come inside and play? And I was like, oh, God, please don't, please. And I really didn't, because I wanted quiet as much as possible. And I said, you know what? I need to serve my neighbors. I said, sure, come on in. They jumped on the Nintendo Wii and they're playing, and then they had a stuffed animal war, and there's stuffed animals everywhere, and there's screaming and craziness. And because I'm a glutton for punishment and apparently hate myself, filled up a little pool in the backyard and let them swim around in the backyard. And because it's part of my mission. I'm here to serve my neighbors. I wanted to be selfish, but I knew I needed to leverage my home in that moment. Third way, again, this is easy. Eat with people. We all eat, right? Like after today, we're going to eat lunch probably. Then we're going to eat dinner at some point. Did you know that every single day, for the most part, you eat food? Like every one of us. Like we many times, 3 times a day, right? That's 21 meals. How about this? Instead of just eating by yourself or eating with your best friend or eating with your church friends, maybe your neighbors. Invite them over for dinner. Or how about this? You don't know anybody. Go to a family-style restaurant that has seating with a bunch of people where people just sit down at one of the tables and strike up a conversation with someone. When we got here, I leveraged this as much as I could. Anyone that would be willing to sit down across from a table from me, I ate with them, I paid for their meals, I got coffee, I got really poor, but I leveraged everything I could to meet people. And you know what's so crazy is there's people in this room that are here because I ate with people. I got to know them. And this is what we had this conversation with 12 people in a little living room. We said, hey guys, be a regular at places. Serve your neighbors. Eat with people. You're going to eat anyway. Include them in some meals. And then lastly, jump into something. We all have hobbies. We all have things we like to do. Jump into something. In the early days of the church plant, there wasn't always a lot of stuff to do. I mean, there would be a lot of times I'd be really busy because it was, well, as far as like during the day working on things, it was me. But I realized I have to leverage this. So a lot of days, at the end of the week, I'd go to Sewell Park. I love volleyball. I'd go to Sewell Park and I'd play volleyball. It was pretty awesome in the early days. And I said, I want to meet people. I want to get to know people. But guess what? A few months ago, I realized that this one, I'd quit doing a little bit. Life had gotten busy. I have a daughter that loves to ride horses and has horseback lessons. I have a son that plays soccer. I have another daughter that's in dance. And I have another son that's, well, a baby, and that takes up time. And I had all those things, plus I have a small group on one night, plus we have a staff family night on another night, and Kelly and I hang out once in a while. You know, I had all these things, and I'd realized that I wasn't really being generous with my time, and I wasn't really involved in anything, meeting people outside of church stuff. I realized my life composed of church people, and I love you most of the time. But I realized I wanted to hang out with people like Dave. I wanted to be around people that weren't a part of my circle that I already knew. So I joined another volleyball league. And in fact, in case you think like, why on earth is he wearing a shirt that says Wrecking Balls? This is my team name. And I'm wearing this as an illustration. And we have a game at 12 o'clock. So on Sundays, after church, I leave here and I go play in a volleyball league. And the reason I did that, and we're pretty good too, I will say. The reason I did that, yes, I like volleyball, but it's something I could jump into. It was just people that weren't connected to our church. And I wanted to get outside of that bubble and meet other people and build relationship with people. That's why I did it. See, this is easy. You be a regular. You serve your neighbors, you eat with people, and jump into something. This is stuff you already do. Just leverage this for the mission because you are a missionary. I want you to watch this quick video. And this explains how one family in Austin has done just this, how they leverage where they live and their home for the mission. And this is a family from a church up in Austin. I thought it so adequately illustrates what we are to do and how we leverage this. Check this out.
God can take us anywhere, and we're prepared to go wherever He wants us to go. But while He's got us here, we view this neighborhood as our long-term mission field.
We've been married for, 12
years.
12 years, and we've lived here in this lovely house in Circle C for 8.
As we got to know the neighbors, like right off, we knew we were going to love getting to hang out here. There were just a lot of people that were very welcoming when we got here. Everybody was quick to come over and greet us.
I think one thing that we're real sensitive to is how much we're leaving our neighborhood. So just being available, being here, being present, being willing to go out front and throw the football or, gardening or whatever it is that helps get outside and connect with the neighbor. We got this old school projector, and Brandon used his old school laptop, and we would play movies, and we just pull
Has it changed much? Is it like new school?
It's getting
Okay,
good.
it's good.
So we would just play movies on our garage door, and all the kids would come. We'd say movie night, popcorn. It's so simple.
During the movies, the kids will get sucked into the movie, and then the parents kind of back off and just sit around kind of the perimeter and talk and get to know each other. And it's just really great. Lots of great memories, lots of great conversations.
Brandon and I are pretty intense. We're pretty intentional. We come off strong sometimes, so we have to kind of, we're like, so do you love Jesus? Do you go to church? Do you want to come to our Bible study? And they're kind of like, oh, you're crazy.
We had one situation where a neighbor came over and was kind of caught off guard by some of the conversation topic, the directness about Christ, and kind of reminded her of maybe church when she was a kid, and it kind of left a bad taste in her mouth.
And it was a big mess up. Like, it just really was. And we were like, whoa, that didn't go the way we wanted it to, and God still used it. Like, He was still like, I'm bigger than this, and I can still use something that was out of control or maybe messy. And it was the coolest thing when she came over one day after she had gone to church, and she said, Becca, I get it. Like, I get it. And then it's been neat to kind of help walk through her growth, and it's hard, right? It's hard for me, and I think that's what I always remind her of. I'm growing too.
So a lot of times we would spend so much time controlling conversations and making sure things would happen that we thought would foster, a good environment. Actually, when we backed off a little bit and realized we're not in control and the Holy Spirit is in control, there was a lot of relief for them and for us. And time and time again, He's just convinced us that we need to get out of the way a lot of times.
I think one thing we have struggled with is feeling like, okay, we have to have it all together before we can let people in. And I think I would just encourage people, it's never going to be perfect. This has been our 8-year journey, and God has given us this gift and opportunity to really get to know our neighbors, and we've been willing and available, and that's how God's wired us, and we're so grateful for it, but we are still wrestling and figuring it out. God's
humbling us on a regular basis. It's not easy. It's human beings. It's sin. It's brokenness. It's messy. When I think of Christ and what He's done for me, it actually helps me pursue my neighbors in kind of an unconditional, relentless way, kind of like He pursues me every day. We really do feel called to view our neighborhood as a mission field. It's a place that is without Christ. People look different here than they do in other parts of the world, but they have the same needs, they have the same hurts, they have the same life struggles that I think the gospel applies to.
My long-term vision is that everyone on this street is saved, and I pray for it. I am praying for their salvation, and I think God can do it. Like, I really, really do. It's kind of exciting just to talk about, because I'm like, He can do anything.
You may think that the greatest mission field is 3,000 miles away. But I want to challenge you that your greatest mission field is across the street. You don't have to get on a plane and travel across the ocean to get to an unreached people group, people that are far from Jesus. You just have to get off your couch, get out the door, and cross the street. See, maybe for you, it's at home with your neighborhood. Maybe it's at work with your coworkers. Maybe it's your family that you live with. But every single one of us are supposed to be a missionary. If we call ourselves Christians, then this is a part of our mission that's been handed down to us. And now it's our turn. And I want to resource you guys. I want to help you guys out. We've given you 4 practical ways that you can do this, but I want to take it another step further. We have a resource guide for you. We put together this little packet, and what we're going to do is we're going to email this out tomorrow. So if you're not on our distribution list, if you don't get announcement emails that come in, then that means, well, you're not on our distribution list. So grab the connection card, just put your name and your email address so you can make sure to get this. We're going to email this out tomorrow. But in this, it just says simple ways to be missional, to live on mission. And there's one in here about how to be missional in your neighborhood. It says stay outside in the front yard while watering your lawn. Lately, we haven't needed to do that one. But have a game night, yard games outside and different things like that. Grow a garden and give out extra produce to your neighbors. Start a weekly open meal night in your home. I mean, it's all these, this is 25 different ways that we can do that in our neighborhood. And then there's 30 simple ways to be missional at your workplace. One of them is make a note of birthdays and bring in cupcakes, maybe, for birthdays. Ask a coworker out for lunch or bring a sack lunch and meet with them. Offer to cover for a coworker that needs a day off. I mean, just things like that, simple ways that we can be missional. And then there's another one in here, 10 more ways to be missional. There's another article, 8 ways to be missional. There's one in here about families and all that sort of stuff. And then right now happening in eKids, right over there, our children, what they're hearing how they can do this, how they can be a part of the mission. And they're going to get a guide both for nursery and pre-K as well as elementary on how we can be missional with our kids. How if you have someone in the nursery, if you have someone in pre-K, how you can be missional, taking walks and all kinds of different things. And elementary age kids, how they can do that. And we want to resource you and we want to help you become iconic, become more like Jesus. Because that's the mission that he's passed down to us when he said, now you must go into all the world, make disciples. How do you do that? Teach them everything I've taught you, everything I've commanded you, including, hey, make disciples. Make disciples that make disciples that make disciples. And this is our mission. So again, if you don't have your email into us, fill out a card so we can email it to you. There'll be a download link that you can check it out. And my homework assignment for all of you, you ready? When you get this guide on Monday, I want you to go through and pick out 4 things that you can do, 1 each week. That's it. Just one thing you can do this week to be missional. And then one thing that you're going to do the next week and the next week and the next week. And just pick out one of those things. There's probably, close to 100 different ideas. Choose one of them to be missional. And then next week, I want to remind you, we'll start a brand new series called For Our City. You will not want to miss this series. This is going to be, you heard Tyler say, a big deal. So you won't want to miss it. And next week, like you heard them say in the announcement, after service, we want to encourage you to plan to stay a little bit afterwards. We're going to be hanging out in the courtyard. There's going to be inflatables for the kids. We're going to be grilling out a little bit so you can have something to eat. So there's no reason to have to rush away. We want to have a great time. We want to talk, get to know each other, and just have a time to all hang out together. So next week, we're going to have a special guest with us. It's going to be an awesome service that you absolutely will not want to miss. Be here for Our City. And ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have. I got a volleyball game I got to make it to. So we're going to go ahead and close out. Thank you so much. Have an incredible week. God bless you guys. We'll see you next week.